Hey there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. I'm your host, PattSun, and today we're gonna be taking a look at r/divorce, where OP's ex-wife is one crazy lady. Let's begin. How do I stop my ex from attacking my current partner and away from my son? Posted by Reddit user looking to survive.
I really struggled about making this post because my divorce is still a great source of anger at times. Not much as it used to be, but it really triggers my negative brain. But my therapist told me that it helps to write a journal. My ex-wife and I had a 2-year relationship. We had our son before we married, and I tried really hard to be a good husband and a father. Starting as an introvert meant that I really had to start from scratch. But I can honestly say I did my best to learn. My ex and I were total opposites, and maybe opposites attracted in the beginning, but then we started to butt heads a lot. My ex-wife, I learned, hated to compromise and would use bullying and gaslighting tactics to get her way. She was a spender and wanted to splurge on things because she thought that she deserved it. Looking back, she wasn't really a good mom or wife. She was very self-centered and spent more time on her phone than with me or my son. I took care of everything, including my son's hospital, and she didn't want any more responsibility, while I was being burnt out from all the work and responsibilities. The last straw was when she was cheating on me with her ex. Both of us knew that infidelity was not acceptable from the beginning and a deal breaker. As soon as I learned, I knew that I needed to leave or start a fight, so I carefully planned how I was going to leave. I found a house to rent 2 hours away from where we were. I work remotely, so that wasn't an issue. Removed myself from the apartment lease and all of the utilities, removed myself from the joint account that we had, and moved while my wife went to leave for some facial therapy. Before I left with her divorce papers with copies of evidence that I also sent to her family members exactly at the same time the moving company, and I left our old apartment. I blocked her on everything I could. Basically, I left everything in 6 hours. After I moved everything into my new place, I was bombarded by texts and calls from her side of the family. Mostly I got apologies from her cousins since they knew from the beginning what might happen. Her mom apologized a lot, saying that she didn't raise her daughter well, and both her and my ex's aunt begged me to reconsider the divorce. Then I started getting messages of threats and insults from my ex from a different number. I just kept blocking those, but it got so bad that I just got a new phone. The divorce was slightly rough because of my ex. My ex tried to say that I kidnapped my son and tried to sue me. But I presented all the facts, that I was the one solely responsible for everything at home and for our son's health, speech therapy, etc. The judge was surprisingly understanding and said that since I was the primary care provider for my son, he dismissed my ex's claim. And then I present all of the evidence of my ex's infidelity, including all the money she spent. I even got the AP to confess. Long story short, the AP still lived with his parents, and I threatened to sue him for alienation of affection unless he confessed. It was a long shot, to be honest, but he caved in. Because of all the evidence, I was given almost all of my money. I just had to pay my ex a little bit of alimony for a year since she quit her work. And during custody, I was rewarded primary custody with my ex getting supervised visitation. She only got that because of all the threatening messages that she sent me. She literally shot herself in the foot. It was so bad for her because I now live 2 hours away from her by car, and she couldn't drive. So she didn't even visit my son for months until she got her cousin to drive her. I really realized how bad it was only until after I started living by myself and my son. I felt like a huge weight was off of my shoulders, and I felt at peace with myself. So I decided to make best of this change. I still worked at home, and because of my son's autism, I was able to get a care provider to care for my son and get an ABA therapist to help his therapy at home. It was so much better that I can't describe in words. My ex shifted tactics after a few months of seeing my son, saying that she regretted her actions and wanted to be a better person for me and my son. But I wasn't having it. One time she came with her luggage and tried to move in, but I refused and called the cops. Everything from gaslighting to crying and everything to get her way again. So I told her to never come back. I even got the judge to deny her visitation since she tried to force her way into moving in a few times. She then started love-bombing me with texts. She even got her mom and aunt to help her, but since that was still with my old phone, I just ended up giving it up to a cell phone disposal for a chunk of change. Then, about one school year passed, and my son's care provider and I got really close. She was very sweet and gentle, so much different my ex. She was so helpful and thoughtful and so positive. But she was 11 years younger than me. Back then, I was 30, and she was 19, going to nursing school. So I didn't make any advances. But one day, when my son was down for his nap, she cooked for me a wonderful meal, and we ate together. And she confessed being attracted to me. She told me that she wanted to date me for real. I initially thought that it wasn't going to be that smooth since respite care providers have rules about fraternization and getting close with clients. And the age gap was certainly an issue, but she said that she would quit her provider work if she had to. I told her I needed time to think and process. My divorce really had shattered my desire to date anyone, but I was so attracted to her. So I told her that I would like to do this slowly and properly. And 4 years of dating and her graduating and becoming a full-time nurse, we tied the knot. I learned from my past mistakes and decided to be a much better husband to her. And thanks to her vivaciousness, that wasn't hard to do. My son even calls her mom now. In fact, the first time he did that was when I knew that I had to marry her. And I admit I took the relationship very slowly because I wanted to be careful. Strangely enough, I am still close with my ex's cousins. They are all old school, and while they care for my ex, they respect me even more and always ask about my son and how I am doing. All of them are either firefighters and military, so they don't play. They even invite my family and I to vacation with them. And now the sore portion that still makes me angry, my ex. She somehow found out my wife a few years back and confronted her at her freaking nurse school. That really scared my now wife, and I nearly punched her when I came to break up the situation. My now wife and I filed more restraining orders against her. And now my ex is now not allowed to be anywhere near my family, even our son. She can only video chat with him now or have supervised visitation in a place of our choosing. After our divorce finalized, she returned back to work and got herself living alone. Over the years, she tried to get her cousins to convince me to help her, but they just straight up refused. Even her mom and aunt gave her up. Our last talk with each other, she asked me what she could have done to gotten me back, and I jokingly said that she would have to join the military to learn some discipline. And she actually did join, only to be kicked out for some disciplinary reason or something. Now she is just passive-aggressive, posting on social media about forgiveness, second chances, and how modern women are victims. And some of her followers actually believe her lies. My current wife told me not to worry about it. She is so kind and understanding, knowing that I have so many trust issues and such. We are planning to have our first child together soon, and I want to do things better this time. I guess the moral of the story that I want to tell every betrayed man is there is always someone who will love and respect you more than your current spouse. Don't settle for anything less. Now for OP's first update. So I have been getting a lot of chat requests on additional context, updates, and info. A lot of people ask me about red flags and not seeing them before and after I married both times. The first time I married, I didn't see any glaring red flags. But in my defense, it was 4 years ago, and my list of red flags to check for was pretty short. In my second marriage, my list of possible red flags were significantly larger, hence the 4-year relationship before the marriage. I would say that experience from my first marriage definitely helped in that. Not to mention, my second wife is leagues above my first wife. To be honest, that is somewhat expected, as my first wife came from a broken home with multiple half-siblings. Her mother never married, yet had 3 or 4 daughters with 3 different baby daddies. That should have been my first clue, and that's just not her. Her aunt is like that. Most of her cousins on her mother's side are like that. My second wife, on the other hand, came from a very stable family. She is the second youngest of 6 siblings, and they have a very tight family support system. And after I proved that I was serious in this relationship, they have become my family as well. As for my wife's occupation, there seems to be this notion that nurses cheat with other nurses and doctors in the hospital. With this, all I can say is I trust my wife enough that she doesn't cheat on me, because she goes out of her way to call me during her work hours and to placate my fears. She and I signed a prenup as well, that if she cheats on me, she gets nothing. I can't control her actions and or push myself to be helicopter husband or hire a private eye to watch her every move. I have taken another leap of faith with her, yes, and I just pray that this time it is different. But if it is not, my nuclear option remains. My child is getting along very well with my current wife as well. Since his mother spends little time with him because of the restraining order and everything, he has grown so attached to my current wife that he cries when we drop him off at school and runs after her whenever she walks away. He's currently 4 and still at that age when they are attached to their mothers. Since my ex never really spent time with him, I guess he never got attached to her from the beginning. Another thing involving my ex-wife is that she had been trying to get over the restraining order so that she could see our son in person instead of just video chats. She even said that she would pay all of the child support and arrears that she owes, which at first made me surprised that she even had that much money to give, because I believe she owes about $10K. I reached out to her cousins, who I still talk with because they respect me more than they do her, to see what changed for her, like if she got a sugar daddy or something. Turns out that she started an OF. At which point, I went to the custody center, saying that I will not allow my son to interact with a sex worker. This may seem extremely petty to some of you, and while it may be, I will not allow our son to be in contact with STDs. I don't know what kind of content she does on OF, but I don't care. And having an OF worker as a parent just doesn't sit right with me. I am debating on asking my ex to sign away her parental rights. This is not to punish her, but I need to set hard boundaries. If she did have a sugar daddy, maybe it would have been better because those things can be ignored or hidden. But an OF? Come on. And now for OP's second update. I need some legal advice. So long story short, I divorced about 5 years ago and remarried to a woman who used to be my son's caretaker. My current wife and I have been together for 4 years and married for 1, with 1 child on the way. After the divorce, my ex was a nightmare. We placed her on restraining order because she tried to attack my wife and she briefly lost visitation rights over our son. Her restraining order is not permanent, however, and she's constantly trying to challenge the restraining order so that she can visit our son. I don't trust her to be anywhere near my son or my family. She's threatened my wife several times before marriage and tried to sue me for kidnapping my son when I moved out. She's been missing child support, got kicked out of the military, and recently started an OF, according to her cousins. She had reached out and said that she will pay all of the due child support and arrears so that she can show me that she is back on her feet. Once I found out that she was on OF, I told her that I would not allow her near our son. I've been talking to my lawyer for the past few days and asked him what I could do to block her further. He told me that unless she had a history of being violent or neglectful of our son, he couldn't make a claim that she was a threat to my son's safety. Considering that I was the one responsible for his well-being before the divorce, I can't say my son was in danger with her. She literally just gave him the iPad and did her own thing when she had him. I asked him whether that couldn't be considered as neglectful, and he said it was a long shot with that. Then I brought up the history of restraining orders my current wife put on my ex, and he then said that only shows the hostility between the two women, not with my wife and my child. And all this time, she's posting on social media that my current wife is neglecting our son, putting false claims, and she is constantly saying that because she is a nurse, she's going to cheat on me. I feel like I need to make a permanent restraining order on her so that she stays away from my family. What do you guys recommend?
OP, the only advice that I could give you is to document anything and everything that you can. False claims? Screenshot everything to capture any public postings. File a slander suit if you have to. If she calls, tell her that she's being recorded, and if she doesn't want to be recorded, then she can send you a message or an email. That way you will still have a paper trail. This is a situation where you need documentation to be able to show a pattern of behavior. The best person to ask and help you with this is your lawyer. Viewer support is the best way for me to remain independent and continue bringing you these daily videos, which will always be here on my channels for you to watch absolutely free. So please consider subscribing to me on Rumble and on YouTube. Both will be linked in the description box down below. Thanks for listening, everyone. If you even somewhat enjoyed today's story, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, and if you really like it, consider subscribing to Pattsun to never miss a future upload. Stay strong.